Hello. Now I would like to talk about setting goals. Setting goals for your family is probably one of the most important things you can do when you choose to homeschool. And why do I say this? Because when you decide to homeschool, it's not just a willy-nilly, it's a great idea to go homeschool. But there's reasons why you want to homeschool. You also have values and things that you want to instill in your children and things that you want for them down the road. And honestly, your values and what you want to instill are different than somebody else. It couldn't even be very different from your best friend who's sitting right next to you, and that's okay. So a lot of parents out there on the homeschool sites and just so many homeschoolers right now are saying, well, how much time should I spend and what kind of curriculum should I use and what am I looking at and how do I do this? Really, all of that comes down to what you want for your children, and you're the only one that can decide what you want. So let me just paint a little picture for you to think about as you're choosing your goals going forward, and why it's so important to know now what you want so you can choose how you go forward in this homeschool journey. So if you want to train your child, if your hope and goal is that they learn how to be a hard worker, no matter what, they get in, they work hard, they're diligent, they're consistent, they're responsible, they keep track of their time, if those are the goals that you want for your child, and they don't give up when it gets hard, because guess what? That's a part of life too, right? If those are your goals, then you likely would want to steer clear of activities and scheduling your day in a way that does not reflect those goals. So, for example, if you want all of those things I just mentioned, but you get up at, say, 10 o'clock in the morning, you maybe get started by 11 in the morning, you do a little bit of homeschool, but if the kid is just not feeling it that day, you go ahead and just stop and pick up the next day. It's just a very laid back atmosphere. If that is how your day is structured, and it's not really that important to get through their work, then the likelihood that what you have sown to every single day is not going to reap what you're wanting for them in the long run. Now, I'm not going to sit here and judge what your day should look like, because some people are early birds and some people aren't. When you do get started, what kind of a day do you set for your children? And is that kind of a day and that kind of a schedule and that kind of rigor or laid back atmosphere, and I'm not going to say one is better than the other, but is that atmosphere that you're creating one that you want them to carry on down the road? Because the truth of the matter is, those seeds that you sow every single day right now are the ones that they're going to take with them down the road. So if you want your child, if you're thinking, I want my child to be a doctor, or I want my child to be a hooty-toot engineer, and those aren't bad things. I don't have a preference one way or the other, whether they do that or a farmer. Honestly, farmers are stinking hard workers. But if your goal is to be a doctor, having a laid back atmosphere for 13 years in school is probably not the direction you want them to sow to, because when they get to be 18 and they have to knuckle down and work their hiney off to get through school and to pass and to get good grades and to get their scholarships to pay for college and to get accepted into medical school, all of that, though, they're looking for hard workers, for people that are gonna stick it out no matter what. And if you haven't sown to that in those 13 years, you're not gonna reap that then. Now, if the last place you want your child to be is in college or Harvard or an Ivy League school, which I'm not a big, huge, super fan of the fruit that comes out of those places, but if that's the last place you want your child, but you still want those types of goals, you're still gonna teach them to work hard. Now, maybe because your end goal is not college, then maybe you don't have to do every subject under the rainbow. But whatever you choose the subjects that no matter where life takes your child, they're set up for success. And I guarantee that if you teach them hard work, responsibility, time management, sticking with something even when it's difficult or it's uncomfortable, even when you're not good at it, those kinds of skills will take them anywhere they go. Now, some people really, really like classical education. And classical education, I'm not going to go through all of it because there's so much to it. But they want music and foreign language and learning Greek and Latin and learning all the classics. And there's a lot to it. Then expect your day to be very full. But it's not something that you have to do, but it's not wrong to do it either. But just think about those goals and think about how you're going to reach those goals. And know that whatever choice that you make for your children, if it is a laid back approach, and again, I'm not going to say that the laid back approach is wrong, but if you make a habit of getting up whenever you choose, not doing school often because you didn't feel it that day, or letting your child, if he wakes up and doesn't feel it either, say, oh, forget it today, let's go on to something else. Do you think at some point down the road, if he has sewn to that for years, that when it's time to graduate and go get a job, what's the likelihood that he's going to continue in those same footsteps when the job is boring, when it doesn't excite him? Those are just some real things to think about. Think about what you want for your children. And the truth is, it's not wrong to spend every waking moment doing academics with your child. It's also not wrong to stick to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and to spend your time in work skills outside of academics. Neither of those two things are in and of themselves the best. But the skills behind them, the goals, the values, the morals, what direction you point your child in, those are the things that will take them when the academic part has gone on and when they've graduated. What do you want them to take with them? That growing up was laid back and easy and enjoyable? Okay, that works. But did you make sure along the way that they learned those hardworking skills that even when they didn't feel like doing it, they pushed through it? Or did you teach them that it was okay to quit because they didn't feel it that day? And think about this. If you teach them it's okay to quit today in silly things like reading and math, when they get into relationships, when they get into jobs, when they get into situations where they're not feeling it or where it's hard and it's difficult, do they have that same tenacity to push through? And if they don't, if that's not what you want for them, then think very carefully about how many times you decide you're not feeling it that day and quit. Now, I will be the first to admit that there's been times that I have said to the kid, you guys, let's just take a break today. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. But that's an exception, not the rule. It was very rare that I took days like that because I wanted to teach my children that no matter how you feel, it's important to push through feelings because feelings are so fickle. Feelings and emotions come and go like the weather. What doesn't come and go are jobs. If you want them to be able to hold down a job, stay in a relationship, a committed relationship, stick with friends, not bounce around from one to the next. If your goal is stability, then think about how you're sowing today that's going to reap that fruit tomorrow.